Well, hey friends, it's me, Pastor Doug, with another word of encouragement for the day, for today, Tuesday, February 22nd. And today's word comes out of the book of Colossians, chapter 3, verse 16. And in it, we continue our I Dare You series, where we've been exploring 6 practices designed to help you and me connect more deeply with God. If you've been along with us for this journey, you know that we've talked about prayer and scripture reading as daily rhythms and habits. We've talked about Sabbath. We've talked about the importance of serving as a way to follow in the footsteps of Jesus consistently. We talked even about care for our physical body as a spiritual practice. And then this last week, we talked about worship as a rhythm, as a habit, as something that so integrates itself into our lives that it becomes a part of everything we say, think, and do. And this morning, I want to read from Colossians chapter 3, verse 16. In it, Paul is writing to the Christians in Colossae, and he says something really interesting. He says, let the message of Christ dwell among you richly. In other words, may the truth of Christ be the primary focus of your thinking. Let it dwell among you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom through psalms and hymns and songs from the Spirit, singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. Now, what's interesting to me here in this passage is that Paul is essentially saying, listen, I want the message of Christ, the truth of Christ to be at the forefront of your thinking, of your mind all the time. And he says the way that you're going to do that is through music. He mentions musical terms 4 different times in this one verse. He says, he mentions hymns and psalms and songs from the Spirit and singing to God with gratitude in your hearts. And you think, well, what does music have to do with that? And if you know my opinion about this, I've often said that worship is far more than just music, right? Because I think sometimes the American church tends to reduce worship down to that 15 or 20 minute music time at the beginning of a church service on Sunday morning. And worship is so much more than that. But according to Paul, music is an essential element of our worship. And I was kind of thinking about that. So worship is more than just music, but our worship ought to include music. And so this week, the thing that we're encouraging everyone to do, if you've been with us through this I Dare You series, each week we've kind of got some practices that we actually try to do together. And so the practice this week is to replace whatever it is that you typically listen to throughout the week, whether that's podcasts or talk radio or the news or music on the radio or on a Spotify playlist or something like that, to take whatever you typically listen to throughout the week in the car and at home, at the gym, whatever, and replace that with actually listening to worship music. Now, what is that going to do, right? I mean, what's that really going to change? Well, here's what I think is true. I think that what we listen to affects what we think about, and what we think about affects how we live. So there's actually a correlation between what I listen to day in and day out. And so if that's Fox News or CNN or C-SPAN or whatever the news is, whether that's podcasts, if you're listening to Joe Rogan or you're listening to somebody else, if you're listening to just regular music on the radio, maybe songs that you grew up with, maybe current songs. Well, all of that listening is affecting what we think about, and what we think about affects how we live. So what if we replaced that listening content and we began to listen to songs that remind us of the goodness of God, songs that remind us of the grace of Jesus Christ, songs that remind us of the power and the majesty and the glory of the God of the universe? What might that do to our thinking and to our living? Because I believe that what we listen to affects what we think about, and what we think about affects how we live. So friends, that's my encouragement for you today, that you would give this some consideration and you would consider this week replacing what you normally listen to with a Spotify playlist, a worship playlist, or a worship channel on YouTube. There's lots of ways to get worship music, but find a place and have that playing throughout the week and see how that affects your thinking and your living this week. Friends, I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.